Hello there and welcome back to Music That Doesn't Suck, the place where we talk about music that actually doesn't suck. Let me get my lamp a little bit closer to me.
Yes.
Because I'm starting to feel dark. Look at that. Didn't improve that much. So wherever I've been working it while we are on it. So today we're going to be talking about something that I would never have put in the same sentence with doesn't suck. Because we're going to be talking about Coldplay. Because believe it or not, they actually have good music. Yeah, they released they stopped releasing good music in 2002, but that's actually something that even Apple Music concurs with me, because when you go to the Apple Music page for Coldplay, the essential albums is only Parachutes and Rush of Blood to the Head. I wonder why.
Those are the only two albums that I know of.
Yeah, and look, no, we're not gonna be bashing Coldplay. In reality, we're gonna be praising and asking ourselves, what the hell happened to them? So, if you're in for the ride, let's rock and roll. And let me introduce you to Stunning Raven. It's every single time beautiful to everyone. Look at that. Well, totally not, because I'm going to use this segue to fix my lamp.
Of course, not well, regardless. Hello, girls and boys, how's it going? Very glad you're back, and great to have you here as well. So yeah, Coldplay is a little bit divisive in a way, because it's a band that you have legit reasons, 2 albums, to respect.
But actually good, legit reasons.
Yeah. But you have plenty of legit reasons not to respect that much as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're gonna try to focus the conversation more on the.
We're gonna try to be positive.
Okay, we're gonna try.
Yeah, we're gonna stick to the good stuff.
Yeah.
So let's begin.
Okay. So, why? First of all, why Coldplay? Why are we talking about Coldplay?
Because
But before that, give me a second.
Wow.
What's today's mix?
Today's mix is actually quite in accord to what we're gonna be discussing, which is today's mix is Russian, no, what's ballet russe, which in non-French would be Russian ballet. And this one, it's actually 1 ounce of vodka, just a miserable ounce of vodka, 3/4 of creme de cassis, an ounce and a half of lemon juice, and an entire ounce of sugar syrup. So you can go girlier than this. So I think it's quite appropriate, because we're going to be talking about Coldplay. So, Sante.
Salud.
It's good,
Yeah, actually, it's better than I expected.
but it's way too.
Yeah, it's not a
Man,
proper.
I could drink it in a sip.
Yeah, we're gonna try to avoid that.
Yeah, because I usually drink Negroni and kind of that kind of stuff that is kind of venomous.
But no, it's not bad. I expected it to be sweeter, actually.
No, yeah, it's the lemon.
Mm-hmm.
The lemon actually counters, and also the creme de cassis has a little bit of that fruity flavor to it. And why is it that vodka, just a little bit of trivia, vodka is tasteless? It has no flavor. It's flavorless, actually. So it's usually gonna be used in drinks that are more fruital in flavor, or are not as aggressive in the sense of the liquor and the flavor. That's why usually women tend to like vodka, for good reason. It's not that abrasive, and it makes sense. So, yeah, talking about
fruity. So Coldplay. Look, they are the 2 albums that we have been referring to, which is we're gonna be sticking to those
Just
for the
those.
most part of this conversation. Their first 2 albums, which adds to the injury, but we can get to that in a little bit later on. Their first 2 albums. The first is called Parachutes.
Yes.
The second one is called A Rush of Blood to the Head.
Yep.
Do you want to pick a first, or you want to go in order?
No, we'll go. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's begin let's follow the order, because you can start to see not the erosion, but you start to see signs of the decay.
Okay, so Parachutes, their first album, and in my opinion, their best, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
It's an album that, contrary to a lot of their music nowadays, has quite a lot of personality.
Yes. Before going live, we actually listened to it from start to finish while having lunch, because it's been a while since I listened to that album on its entirety, and probably like 15 years. But it sounds, and it has everything that I like about Coldplay, or not about Coldplay, about that album. Nothing changed. Actually, it aged magnificently well.
True.
It's as good as I remember it to be, if not a little bit better. Because the music is timeless, isn't it?
It is indeed. And it is meaningful. It feels like it's actually saying something.
They are actually trying to communicate a message, right?
Yeah, the first track of the album, which one is it?
Shiver.
Is that the first
I
already?
think it is. No, it's Don't Panic.
Yeah, true.
That's actually wild an opener, man.
Yeah.
Wild an opener because it sets the mood beautifully. It's a very kind of catchy track, but it's not fast. It's not slow. The drums are kind of interesting for the most part.
Yeah.
The drummer is actually on fire.
It is because throughout the album, even though the drumming is not super in your face at any given point in time, for basically all songs the drumming is interesting
And creative,
and
right?
creative, yeah.
And
But without getting in the way.
I agree, and I would even dare to say that the way that I would describe the album, to summarize it, would be creative. Because most of the music, most of the use of the instrumentation, is extremely creative.
Yeah,
The way that they implement certain effects, more on that later, but it's very creative and minimalistic in its approach. Incredible, considering on what they ended up turning it.
Yeah, another aspect that you can see a lot of creativity is sound design.
Yeah,
Because it's once again you mentioned it's not a super how can I say layered album.
Dense.
Yeah, dense. I think is a better word to put it. But it is very clever in the way that they use the different sounds that they have at their disposal. It's very good. On that regard.
yeah, actually. Then coming back to Don't Panic, the pacing of the vocals is very, very kind of smooth. Having this cadence that is quite catchy, and the drums are faster than you might imagine. Also, the use of electric guitar, the very simple. Like if you think that playing guitar involves using more than one finger, you would be incorrect. This is less than one finger. No, but it's very simplistic in its approach, but super effective.
It is.
Every single time that the guitar kicks in, it's meaningful and memorable. And this track, I consider to be a great example of how to start off a track. An album.
An album, yeah.
In general, outside of this being Coldplay or not, because it basically presented to you what this band is all about in this record.
Yeah, it is indeed.
In less than 2 minutes.
And even the atmosphere of the whole album, even though the album is quite dynamic, it has a style, it has an aesthetic, but it moves around.
Yeah, and it's beautifully mixed, man. It was mixed by I don't know why I have Bob Clear Mountain right now in my head. The entire day. A great mixer as well. No, Michael Brower. Great sounding album. It's beautiful, right?
It is indeed.
Because and considering that it comes from the 2000s, the early 2000s, it's not lambastically loud.
True, yeah, and it's from that period.
It's right when the whole dynamic, the death of dynamics in music and the beginning of the loudness war actually started to took off. To take off. This record actually has plenty of dynamics.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things that I appreciated now listening to it a few minutes ago. Because once again, I also hadn't listened to it in its entirety recently.
Yeah.
But it was good to be refreshed with seeing how it is actually very musical, the way that it flows, the entirety of the album, and dynamics of course play a huge part in that.
And I think it's probably the biggest strength in the album, musically speaking, right? Because the songs are not complex they're not that layered. By layers I mean having plenty of different instruments playing at the same time. It's not that dense of a mix. But they compensate that with excellent use of the intensity of the performances throughout the whole spectrum, because you can see the guitar using particularly well the volume pedal coming in and out correctly in a way that it's always musical and in great taste. The vocals, you can see the singer, which I can stand, playing correctly with the microphone. Of course, the mixing engineer, he's a genius.
Yeah.
But without having a good piece of content to work with, the mix it's impossible for it to turn out the way it did. So from the beginning, from start to finish, it's already great sounding.
It is, and now seeing it as a body of work as well. Even though it's not conceptual album, it's not something that the songs are linked to one another.
As far as I know, it's not.
I don't think it is, but the album has a flow. The way that they ordered the songs, even the songs that went into the album, everything is very well put together. The album feels well put together. It doesn't feel like a hodgepodge of songs.
No, the collection of songs is actually quite correct. They, dynamically speaking, once again, and you're gonna hear us using that word quite often because actually it's probably the best way to describe the album. They naturally morph one into another. You see a total and normal progression. It feels, it's comfortable. I don't know how to describe it. Nothing is abrupt. Everything from the beginning of a track to the ending of the track and the introduction of the next one, it feels like it flows beautifully and in such a musical way. It's impressive, man.
And there's also one thing that is consistent throughout the album is kind of the emotional underlying tone. Because the album goes places. It's not an album that is...
No, that's also impressive.
Yeah, but there is all throughout the entirety of it, even though it has range, emotional range, you have that kind of melancholic element that is not exactly sad, but is not exactly happy either.
I think it's the mix. It's the mix and also the direction of the production. Because the songs, they have that happy do-gooder, happy pants thing going. But the compositions are also a little bit in the melancholic side of things. But I think the way, or the reason why it sounds so kind of personal, it's because the entire thing sounds super cozy. It's like a very, not gentle, but
smooth.
It's smooth and warm to a certain degree, right? Because it feels like something that it's like in your head. Like
kind of introspective.
Very introspective and personal. And that's insane. That's excellent. And it's sad to see that they went to a completely different route later on.
I think we can save the criticism for the...
No, because I wanna avoid myself from going down the rabbit hole of hating on them. Because, believe it or not, I actually like those two albums a lot. Because the first one is excellent. It
is indeed. You mentioned the sound of the guitars. One thing that is also, I think everything sounds great. But I think one thing that is consistently excellent throughout the entirety of the album is the use of the acoustic guitars and the sound of the acoustic guitars. They sound... They sound very good because they are very full sounding. They have a warmth that gives a little bit of that comfortable feeling that you...
texture, right?
But also it feels intimate.
Agreed.
It feels very intimate, and I think the use of the acoustic guitars play a huge role in this intimate aspect of the album.
Agreed. The quality of the production is insane. Because even though it's kind of a minimalistic approach, because there is no bombastic song.
No.
Everything feels like it's performed by the band and no more.
There's a couple of songs that hit a little bit harder, but there's no epic bombastic.
No. And also you can count the instruments by the amount of people you know the band is conformed. Right? You don't hear thousands of layers of guitars or percussions plus the drums or synthesizers doing crazy stuff. It's just the band, and I think that's also a huge push forward.
One thing is that the very clever use of effects and sound design fills quite a lot of the space, because from what you're describing, it would be easy for that approach to feel too thin. But it doesn't feel too thin.
Because compared to later songs, man, that one that was everywhere, Viva Vida, that track is the total opposite to this.
It is
in every regard. It's way too big, but big in a way that is like, nah.
Doesn't even fit them.
No, it's weird, and it's not convincing, and it even has the millennial woe to make it even worse, man. But wherever, coming back to good stuff.
Because look, actually, where they shine, and I do think that's what they do. If let untouched, that is the kind of music that they would keep doing.
I don't know.
Probably, but I think they do this kind of introspective, a little bit personal kind of music. That's not necessarily big in scope, but that hits right at the feels, because their music actually has feels.
It does. I agree. It has plenty of emotion, and even though when I first listened to this album, it was back in the early 2000s. I was still a little boy. I was telling the story to this guy that I quasi stole it from a girl, and parachutes, and I kept it with me for way longer than I should have. But I spin it for several times, and I truly liked it, and of course because that's why I listen to it so often. But one of the things that I went through my head at the beginning was that I knew this band from the song Trouble and the Scientist because I lended that album. I borrowed that album from her when that album, the A Rush of Blood to the Head, was the biggest thing. So she didn't care for that one, so she was listening to the new one. So okay, no problem. It's not that this is not video games, but whatever. So in my head, I thought of the Scientist and Trouble as being the sound of the band, and I was like, damn, those songs are good, but it's gonna be kind of boring because in my head their scope was just that kind of slow-paced, not dramatic, to a certain point a little bit melodramatic, but not in the cheesy fashion. Sad sounding music. I'm a sucker for sad sounding music, but I was like, it's way too slow, man. And on the whole, no, it actually, it's kind of groovy at the beginning.
It is.
And it has those moments on which they actually go softer, and it's soft enough for it to be, should I dare to say, feminine to a certain degree, but without feeling full on estrogen.
Yeah, but I do find their music to be a little bit more on the girly side of things. Which is not necessarily either a compliment or an offense. It's just a characteristic of the mood music. And we've been praising the music the whole time. For God's sake.
So far from being awful.
So moving on with the album. The next one is actually one of my favorite songs in the album, which Shivers. And I think it's one of the highlights. It's one of the highlights of the album. There's a very interesting rhythm going on.
The drums are fun.
They are interesting, but once again, they're not in your face. They're not trying to take the spotlight, but they're adding something to the song.
And huge influences from Pink Floyd and Jeff Buckley. But gigantic, man, gigantic. Because it was a while, as I stated at the beginning, since I listened to those guys, and it surprised me how much Jeff Buckley was an influence during the production of this first album.
It is indeed.
Incredible, right?
In that song in particular, it shows very
plenty of Jay Buckley-isms everywhere, man, and also Pink Floyd-isms.
And it's funny because I am a big fan. I had seen the influence of Pink Floyd before, but for some reason, because I'm a big fan of Jeff Buckley as well, but I had never made the connection. My brain simply didn't connect the dots.
Got you.
But now listening a while back, I said yes, obvious.
It's super clear,
the
right?
influence is very present.
And
it's a good one because I think even though on the singing department it's kind of hard to
comparing it to
make a comparison.
Jeff Buckley, come on, man. That's even it's not funny.
But the music itself is very inspired by, and the way that they drew that inspiration from his music was very cool because it doesn't feel like a ripoff.
No.
But
you see kind of a clear sign of inspiration, right? Paying respect, like an homage, if you wish. Using the watch terminology. Because it feels. I find the connection, the Jeff Buckley connection, in the arrangement, the way that the song, particularly that one, and you will hear plenty of Jeff Buckley's influence across the entirety of the album.
True.
But that one in particular has the clearest connection, which is in the way that the use of the different instruments interact with each other.
The drums are very
super Jeff Buckley, but also the guitar work, the positioning of the instruments, the use of effects, man. Even the vocals, for as much as they are worlds apart from each other, the phrasing, even the singing style, it's similar. Which is actually is interesting. We have a comment there. We can tackle it. But just to finish off with this comment, this section of the conversation, Jeff Buckley has only one album. He's a great artist from the 90s. If you don't know him, you should definitely give it a shot. His album is called Grace. It's fantastic. Oh, you truly deserve. You truly should give it a try.
And I find it remarkable the fact that he managed to become so influential because Coldplay is but one of the acts that got influenced by him with a single album. So it's a very short career that could have gone unremarked, seen just for the length of the career alone. But he was so good, and his music had such a defined personality that a lot of the acts that came later on, especially just after that period of time, because he was in the 90s, we're talking about early 2000s music, was very highly influenced by him. And only one album, once again. A true juggernaut. The truest definition of a juggernaut. Hey, Basket Try, nice to have you here. Hello.
Now, coming back to Coldplay and Jeff Buckley, I think the fact that the vocals...
Are we gonna go there?
No, look. It's impressive that we got Jeff Buckley as probably the biggest source of inspiration from these guys. For the production of this album.
Yeah.
And Jeff Buckley was a great musician, but he was an even better singer.
Yeah, the singing is the star of the show.
Yes, on his album.
Even though the music is awesome as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. But these guys managed to pull it off, at least in Shiver. Even the vocals kind of have the Jeff Buckley.
What do you mean by even
the vocals? No, because the vocals is the toughest thing to do when trying to do the Jeff Buckley style.
Yeah, it is.
Because the vocals are super, super demanding. He was a gifted singer. One of the very few who are huge. If you ever listen to his music, don't listen to Hallelujah, please.
Well, do listen to Hallelujah. It's a good song. It's a good rendition.
But don't get to that one first, because that shows nothing about his style. This is just the final version, the final form of Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. Agreed.
Yeah.
But that's not Jeff Buckley's music. No. Listen to freaking
Grace. Even the title track, Grace, is fantastic.
That's dance and tense. Yeah. I would recommend Forget Her.
Okay.
That's a much more.
It's a much more palatable.
It's accessible.
Yeah.
But also kind of very dramatic sounding. It's very feels. It hits you right on the feels.
Yeah, and the vocal performance is incredible.
That's where you see him shine. Yeah. So I recommend that one.
I think my favorite song out of that album, and I think it's a great showcase of his work, is Mojo Pin. Because I think Forget Her, even though it's a great song, I don't think it shows the full scope of his music, because his music can go quite a lot crazier than that.
Yeah.
Because Forget Her is a...
No, it's self-contained.
It's a little bit more self-contained.
That's why I think it's a better introduction to his music, because Forget Her feels it's a little bit more down to earth.
It is.
And when listening to these guys, Coldplay, I actually kind of I remember that track.
Yeah.
In several points, because they managed to do it in parachutes quite a lot.
Yeah. And I think Forget Her is probably the biggest point of convergence in between their sounds, because when it comes to Jeff Buckley's crazier stuff, Coldplay doesn't really go there.
No, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because they are unique in that regard. You can see the influence, and that should be the defining factor for every musician. You should make clear that you're inspired by someone, but don't rip them off, for God's sake. Come up with your own stuff, man.
Yeah.
Because we're always standing on the shoulder of giants. That's a fact. So try to push the height a little bit higher.
Yeah. And when it comes to the other influence that you mentioned, Pink Floyd also is very present.
It is, right?
It's very present.
You mentioned that it was very clear on the use of the keyboards.
Yeah, I think the keyboard player is probably a big Pink Floyd fan.
Yeah, and I think
because even in the sound design, the use of some of the of the effects, some of the what's the name, the organ sounds, they sound quite reminiscent to some takes by Richard Wright.
Yeah.
And it's a cool influence as well, because you wouldn't necessarily expect Coldplay to...
You never associate Coldplay to Pink Floyd.
But if you pay attention to it, you see, and it's very clear.
But if you listen to those two albums, you actually will be like, yeah, clearly, these guys are clearly inspired by the Floyd, particularly from the earlier stuff.
Yeah,
It reminds me quite a lot to A Saucer Full of Secrets, when they're not crazy.
Yeah, the more music. Yeah, the more musical songs.
From that album. They are quite present. The influence is quite present in Parachutes.
There's a song in particular. What's the name of that song? Is
by Pink Floyd.
What's the Deal? I think it's a song that probably he played a very big influence on the sound of this album as well, because it's Pink Floyd. It's a song by Pink Floyd that almost doesn't sound like Pink Floyd, but it has all of the Pink Floyd to it as well. Yeah. Because it's kind of like a happy sounding song, and they usually don't do happy.
Yeah, I know which one.
Yeah.
Also, I would say that Saint-Tropez.
Yeah.
Also, Saint-Tropez has plenty of it shows influence over Parachutes.
Yeah.
Because it's also kind of a happy-go-lucky, like yeah.
Yeah, because Pink Floyd usually don't go happy. But when they do go happy, it's kind of Coldplay-ish.
Yeah, because it's the remnants of the psychedelic aspects to their music. And in Parachutes, you hear plenty of those.
Yeah.
Now, the popular track, Yellow. What do you think about that one?
It's a very good song.
Yes.
It's a very good song. Yeah. It's actually... It would be a banger if the singing had some
actual singer?
if he had some coffee before singing.
Yeah, this is
It feels very decaffeinated.
Yeah, it has low energy.
Yeah,
Low
to
energy.
put it in a way.
Yeah, because the track is actually badass.
It is. It's a very cool song.
The introduction with the guitar, the clean guitar, it's almost it takes you back in time. Don't you think?
Yeah, but then he hits you.
And because like when the band hits it, I can see that live being heavy as balls and a very emotional and important highlight during the show.
Yeah, and it's clever how they chose to go with an abrupt change when it comes to the beginning, kind of mellow.
Because that's kind of similar to what the rest of the album does. But when
and it hits very hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of those kind of dissonant tones that were quite prominent during the 90s, like Sonic Youth or Dinosaur Jr. All of those bands. I'm not necessarily a fan of them. I respect them, but it's not my kind of music, right? And these guys in this one, they do it well.
Yeah,
it works.
Yeah,
I actually even praised when we were listening to it, like, look, even the dissonant tones are done with such a great taste.
But also, I think a lot of that is out of the mixing as well. Because, for instance, stuff like Sonic Youth you mentioned, usually they have it kind of in your face.
It's more abrasive,
kind of stuff.
Yes.
And here it was subtle. It's there, of course.
It's mellower, yes.
But it's less abrasive.
But the tone of the guitar is quite ballsy, without feeling like metal. Get me?
Yeah.
And I think it's also, once again, this
Mike Brower.
Yeah. Great mixer. Such a great production as well, but the way that he pushed you can even see him. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Bam! Because it feels like, so satisfying, man. It's so satisfying.
Yeah.
And even the singing.
Even the singing once again.
When he joins the fray, he does it in a way that it's cool.
Yeah.
Memorable. No wonder why that song became the hit that it was back in the 2000s.
It was, yeah. I think that is the hit out of that.
It's the one that made them popular, man. Because it actually could bring a rusty metalhead into their flock.
Yeah.
Like myself. Yeah, okay. This is soft but good.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with soft from time to time.
Yeah.
And this is a good example of it because it actually has the character shows a little bit of chest hair, while being kind of in the hitting the feels.
Yeah.
A little bit like Pixies. Also plenty of influence by Pixies.
Yeah.
But in a way that I prefer over Pixies.
I think it's better put together. I think Pixies music, I don't even know a lot of their music, being very honest, because I never really got into it. But the little that I know felt a little bit too samey.
No, it's because it's a different style, man. It's what I would say the 90s, because when it comes to the 90s, I don't think of Nirvana or Pearl Jam. I think of those bands.
Jeff Buckley. That's
but
peak 90s.
Yeah, but man, the thing is that those are not the ones that define the sound of the era.
No.
I truly think of a little bit of the grunge movement, which didn't last that long, but I think of
oh, cheers to that.
Yeah, I think of bands such as Sonic Youth and Smashing Pumpkins. That's the sound of the 90s. Even Tool to a certain degree. The more dissonant a little bit. That's what I consider to be the alternative rock thing.
Oh, okay.
Get me? Because it's only during that period in which alternative rock was a thing.
In theory.
In theory. Yeah, because Coldplay, it's like a super refined, almost to the point of it being the manufactured version of that what's the name of it? That alternative movement. Don't you think? Or the pop side of the alternative. Because if we wanna use Bjork, 90s as as alternative pop, these guys are right there, but a little bit closer to pop than she is to alternative.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think that the whole thing with alternative is is a whole can of worms that may be explored in a different show.
Yeah, of course, because that's. But you see the connection, right? Because Coldplay has a little bit of those.
Look, now even using this as a hook to try to think of the inception of the band, because we already made it clear that we think that they kind of sold out.
Yeah.
After the first two albums, even though that's not the focus of today's conversation.
No.
Thinking on the first two albums now, I feel that those albums were actually them being them,
100%.
doing the music that
100%.
came out of their souls,
hearts.
to put it in a way.
If I may interrupt, according to what the bio on Apple Music says, they met in London, in the University of London, and they began playing music in '98, and they recorded the first EP in '99.
Okay.
So they had no experience prior to that,
Okay.
and they were sent to the recording studio to produce the EP just for them to get some form of miles under their belt before hitting the studio for good.
Okay.
So they were actually noobs.
Oh, interesting.
So no, but that plays a huge role.
Yeah,
I didn't know that detail. So they were actual noobs.
But look, from this perspective, it's actually good because that music was
That's the reason why they wrote it the way they did, man.
kind of visceral to some degree. It was
them
speaking what they had in mind.
It's truly out of their hearts, and it shows. And probably that's why the second one is also similar in quality. A little bit less good as an album. Has better songs, but as an album is not as good as the first one.
But you can already see the swerving.
It's starting to change, man.
Yeah.
It's starting to change.
Yeah.
Because before we go to the second album, Trouble, I think is the best track.
Do you? I think that
Because Shivers is good, agreed. But Trouble, I think it's the one that seals the deal for me.
It's the one with the feels are delivered very well.
But also, man, the style, that's Coldplay. That's unique to them. That and the drums.
Oh, hey, talking about this, one thing that I find interesting, because it's good, but it's very minimalistic throughout the album, is the use of the piano.
Oh yeah.
Because the piano is not taking the spotlight at basically no point in the album.
No.
Really. I don't even think he was a good piano player at the time. Probably basic skills, played correctly.
Good enough for them to be recorded.
But the use of the piano is very clever, because the piano, whenever it pops up, is doing something that truly adds to the music.
To the limitations.
It is.
Agreed.
Because it's not flashy by any means. It's not taking the spotlight, but
it's not Jordan Rudess.
No, but it's well done, and it's actually enhancing the music. If the piano wasn't there, even though it's very bare bones, but very minimalistic, if it wasn't there, it would dilute the music quite a lot.
Totally, man. Because even when it's not playing the main role, you can hear the piano adding chords to the sound of the music, creating this more robust tone to everything.
It was a very musical approach to the piano playing.
And I think Trouble is the one that showcases that the best.
It does.
Because I cannot think of a band that plays using a piano sound like these guys used to do. Because think of that one. That's super unique, but when the drums joins, you don't expect the drums to kick in that hard, because that's punchy rock drums playing on alongside a very mellow, kind of soft sounding piano. Then the voice again. No, but I think in that one he shines. His style makes sense.
Okay.
In that one, it makes sense. It's not tiresome, and his falsetto, which we haven't touched upon yet, we will.
Plenty of things to say about.
Yes. Because in that one it makes sense. It actually adds plenty of personality, character to the sound of the music. And once the band joins back and you hear that particularly cool cadence on the piano with the rest of the band, this is different. And somehow it works. Then the guitar, man. All of those are memorable. It's just simple chords, man. But such in the beautiful use of effects, the positioning of the guitar in the mix, the arrangement, allowing those moments of the guitar to transport you to a different dimension. No, that's masterful, man.
Now that you mentioned the guitar player, once again, the guitar playing is not over technical, it's not flashy.
None of them.
It's very, very self-contained, but the guitar player shines with the use of sound. The guitar player is probably a very great sound designer. I don't even think it was something done by producer. I think he is the guitar player, because it feels like he's being played to those sounds in mind.
I can see the producer being just like, okay, just refine it, because you're already doing something cool. Let me see what you're doing, so I can help you to remove the fat.
Because it feels like the vision of the musician itself. It's not an external vision trying to impose. I don't know if it makes sense, but
no, I get you, man. I get you because it sounds like an extension of the plane to the plane rather than an added feature.
Yeah, because it's his voice to put it
exactly,
in that way.
Exactly.
And he makes use of the sound of his guitar very well throughout the album.
In Jello, for example, the rhythmic guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, open chords, very
beautiful, sparse in between, but then they fill the gaps in between sections beautifully, man.
Yeah,
adding plenty of punch and drama. Because if I were to describe the sound of his guitar, would be dramatic, like with intent, and purpose and meaningful.
Meaningful. I think is a good word for it.
Because not that many notes, but the right ones.
Because even those spaced out open chords, they feel meaningful.
Agreed.
They're saying something, and once again, if they weren't there, the song would be dead in the water.
Dull.
Yeah.
So then moving over to a Rush of Blood to the Head. That's the one with the hits.
Yeah. The two biggest hits are Clocks and the
Scientist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wanted to talk about them first?
Yeah, because the album we start to see the downfall.
But look, in between The Scientist and Clocks, even though they are both gigantic hits, I feel very differently about both songs.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, so pick one and go first.
Scientist. Beautiful song.
I think it's a good song.
Beautiful song.
Yeah.
Because again, in that one, his singing style makes total sense. It pushes the song forward. It's once again Coldplay doing the interesting, clever use of the piano with the rock band.
That feels personal, a little bit introspective.
Punchy. Yeah. Is by far a heavy track, and the drum joins way too late, but at the very end, basically.
Yeah, but it feels right.
But it feels right, and the singing is very melancholic. At the end.
Yeah.
Super angsty, but without sounding like a prick teenager.
Even though he's a prick.
He's a prick. Yeah, he is. But you get me, right?
Yeah.
It conveys that sadness.
Yeah. Once again, and I think we start to see a trend here when it comes to what they do well. I think that kind of melancholic emotional load that is replicated basically throughout the entirety of the first album, and in some songs from the second.
Agreed.
They are the ones that actually feel like that's Coldplay.
Yes, that's their sound.
Because whenever they strayed away from it, from that emotional kind of background, it simply feels generic because it's not what they're actually meant to be saying.
And you got me into thinking, those two albums, they sound sincere.
It does. They do.
They do, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels like this is honest to God.
Yeah, from the heart.
From the heart and everything. That's why even the music is... This is what we got. We are not that proficient in our instruments, but we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is the best we can, and you present it to you with all of the honesty in the world.
Yeah.
It sounds like that.
It does, and it's charming because of it as well.
Yeah, and it's not charming because look at them, they suck.
They're trying their best.
They're trying their best, and look at that.
No, it's good.
It's good, but they know their limitations, and they're not trying to. They are not bringing a quartet to cover the lack of musicality, playing totally not a song that they rip off from an actually talented musician.
Are we gonna cover that today?
No, because I'm gonna get pissed off, and we don't have time. We're already 40 minutes in.
Okay.
So no, but let's keep talking about the positive. I wanna stick to positives today.
The Scientist. We're gonna touch some negatives because it's unavoidable.
Yeah, but I want to spend the most of our time on the positives.
The Scientist, I think it's already showing the more polished version of Coldplay.
A little bit more commercial, would you say?
It's a little bit more commercial because they had the background of the first album, and I think The Scientist is a song that feels a little bit more work done.
Yes.
Than most of the stuff from the first album.
But let me give you a little bit more of background. For the second album, the mix wasn't done by Michael Rawer. It was I don't remember who was the engineer for that one. And it shows. It's not a bad mix, but the character, the personality, because this mix is the one that sold millions. The first one was good, and it sold a few.
Yeah.
But the second one, dude, is the one that to Mars.
And I even think, and I might be wrong, so if some of you are more versed in your Coldplay lore than I am, I think the first album, it was a success, but it was a
a
reasonable success.
good debut.
Since the second album was a big hit, the first album, of course, gained momentum afterwards.
But it was an after result.
Yeah, because the first album put them on the map, of course.
Yes.
They weren't small by any means.
several copies.
But the one that made them Coldplay, as we know them, was the second one.
And it's not the scientist. It's
Clocks.
Clocks.
What did
That
you say about
song
Clocks?
blows. Everything I hate about Coldplay began there. Everything.
Let me try to be fair about that, about Clocks.
No, wait, no.
Look.
Go.
Clocks, I don't think it's a bad song.
I don't even think it's a bad song because I don't even think of it as being a song.
I don't think it's a bad song.
Of course, because it's not a song.
But the fact that it was their biggest hit at that point in time, and maybe it still is. It's definitely amongst their biggest hits still to this day.
Have you ever heard a salsa version? Have you?
No.
There is a salsa version of Clocks.
Well,
And it's, I think it's official, man.
official.
I think it's official. They created an arrangement with a salsa band. It's a band or whatever, a salsa group. I don't know what a salsa thing is, because it's like 3,000 people playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's a group or a band, but whatever, or an orchestra. It's closer to an orchestra. Like
But I think they call it groups.
Yeah, because you got a big band. That's an orchestra.
Yeah.
Or well, big band.
Yeah.
But whatever. Yeah, and I think they lent them the samples, the actual.
They gave them the real deal, the files.
The files.
Yeah.
The recorded takes, the actual takes, and they rearranged it in a salsa arrangement. Because you said. But man, yeah, you just look it up and get pissed. You're gonna be like, damn, I hate it, even more, because now on my end. The super ultra popular piano thing, the introduction to the track, it sounds like a very fun sounding exercise. I don't find it musical. It sounds like an exercise. Whenever you're practicing any instrument, there are certain exercises that are, some of them are not musical because they are designed to allow you to develop some proficiency, a little bit of speed and precision, and there are some others that allow you to develop musical skills that allows you to apply them while not playing music, but while jamming, while improvising, and some of them are quite musical, but that doesn't make them songs. You're gonna, particularly speaking, found those in several of studies for classical guitar. Some of them goes nowhere. They sound, okay, that's good, that's everything. Oh, I get it. And Clocks, it sounds like one of those exercises to me.
Get you.
So that's why from the beginning, like, this is okay, but that's it. Wow. And they made a song out of it. And it never stops playing the same freaking exercise.
It doesn't.
It's boring as balls, man. It truly boils my blood. Then, over pretentious vocals.
Yeah.
Over pretentious production. The goddamn music video that was shoved down our throats for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Because the song got released 2002, but it was everywhere until they released the third album. That's when I stopped caring.
Yeah, we don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
because they truly ruined it for me.
Yeah.
And thank you for that, because they stopped me from being disappointed.
When it comes to Clocks, I actually have an interesting personal story.
Go.
Fun fact.
Look at that.
Don't judge me, I was just a kid. No, but actually Clocks is the first song that I played in front of an audience.
Really?
Yeah. Because it was at the height of it being famous.
Yeah.
And I was in school, it was like one of those kind of battle of the bands kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, one of those recitals.
Yeah, so I got together with another two guys from
And you
school,
did your best.
and I did my best, which of course was horrible. But actually, we played. It was the most current thing ever. We played a medley of Clocks, and I Got a Feeling.
Come on,
Yeah,
back a piece.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's the most like current thing ever at the time.
Shit.
Yeah, those two songs were everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like what? 2004, 5? It's circa that period. Then.
Yeah, around that time.
Yeah.
So, do I look back with shame? No, because I was a kid. But if I did it today, then
Well, was about to make a joke, but no.
So there you go, a little bit of trivia.
Now we know we can go and have proper lip. No, but yeah, but the thing is that album sounds better. If you look at it from the polishment quality perspective, but it doesn't sound better musically speaking. It's way too polished.
No, because
it sounds way too poppy, man.
It lost a little bit of the
character,
the real life feel that the first album had.
Yes.
The honest thing that you that's not even honest. It felt sincere.
Yep.
And the second album doesn't really have that to the same degree.
But it's still good.
It is. It's even better from most objective standards.
No, because if you think about it, compare The Scientist to Trouble, which are kind of similar in style. One is the follow-up to the other one, if you want to look at it from that perspective. The Scientist is a much more mature track.
Yeah.
It sounds a better crafted song. And I think it's because the span of time between the release of Parachutes and a Rush of Blood to the Head is only 2 years.
Yeah.
That tells you that they only had probably 6 months to develop the tracks and 6 months to produce and then record.
Yeah.
Because 3 months for mixing and mastering.
And probably many of the tracks from A Rush of Blood to the Head were already written, or they were already.
They were the B-sides from Parachutes.
Yeah, they probably had like sketches of them or
rejects
raw versions of them.
That they couldn't find a way to. That's because both of the albums sounds way too similar. Right? I remember that back then we didn't have access to proper digital distribution services, so everything for them to sell the album, they had to print the freaking CDs first. So it had to be done in advance, man. Because in mind the marketing campaigns, and at that point, after the success of the first one, I even remember those guys having TV ads. How many times have you seen a rock band with a TV ad?
Yeah.
Just the only one that comes to mind was the last album by Eric Clapton, which was released as well during the early 2000s, and Santana, Supernatural, because it was a gigantic mega blockbuster annoying hit.
Kind of attention, but what do you think about it?
I don't like it.
No?
No.
Why?
I love Santana, but I don't like that album. I don't like that album because it sounds like that this is sell-out Santana.
Yeah, it's the commercial Santana.
It's way too commercial.
But it's not bad by any means, but I think that's the way to put it. It's commercial Santana. The thing is that his good stuff is actually great.
When you got the Borboleta, the white with the white lion.
Yeah.
Nah, man, I don't know. That thing is a disgrace. No, it is, man.
Yeah, that's a bit harsh, but it doesn't compare to the rest of his material.
For real, think about it. It's just a bunch of everybody who was a thing lending a hand to Santana to turn him into someone again.
Yeah, even it feels kind of.
Dude, why would you have Carlos Santana playing with Matchbox 20? Where are those guys now? And that song, it's clearly not written by any of them. It sounds like the most. And don't you think that it's funny that it happened during the early 2000s?
Why?
In the early 2000s was when they started to push into the world the idea of Latino.
Oh yeah.
You got your Ricky Martins, your Shakiras, your Jennifer Lopez everywhere. They were like this and Destiny's Child. Think about it. Just say.
The conspiracy territory that's not part of this conversation.
Of course not, because Carlos Santana, being Mexican, his music has never sounded like that song with Matchbox 20.
True.
Fake.
Okay, putting that tangent aside, look, we're already getting to the final, kind of close to the final moments of this conversation. So let's tackle some of the stuff
that we don't like,
that we try to avoid, but they need to be mentioned.
Yes.
And from my end,
the
singing. Because look, when we finished it, we mentioned that we listened to the album a while back, earlier today, and I had never listened to it on its entirety, back to back, as I did. Being quite honest, I knew the album on its entirety, but I never listened to it as a whole.
Yeah.
And honestly, now that I did, I understand why. Look, the music is very good. The album is very good. I think the album actually deserves to be listened to as a whole piece.
I would even dare to say kind of a masterpiece.
It is.
What it is.
And I do think that the album works as an album. I'm not criticizing the body of work. What I felt that didn't work listening through the whole thing is the singing. I truly find his singing obnoxious, and I truly get not only tired but fed up with his singing after a few songs.
But why?
I
get you.
Yeah.
I feel ya. I just want to know why.
Look, I think it's the overuse of falsettos. I think falsetto is a technique. It's a singing technique. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
There's nothing intrinsically wrong with it. I think he uses it too much.
But in a way that is way in your face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you got King Diamond.
Yeah.
That's clearly in your face, but that's fun.
And it's better done as well.
Yeah. No, I also
Yeah, because he's a good singer.
Yeah, he's a good singer.
Yeah.
His technique is cheesy, ridiculous. Yeah, but it's his stuff.
Yeah.
In this case, the guy doesn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times on which he does it just cause, right?
Yeah.
And that's distracting.
And I feel that maybe he adopted the falsetto as if it was a personal style.
Yeah.
But I don't feel it works.
Look, I think we need to go back a little bit or position ourselves in that period of time. It's early 2000s, or let's put it a little bit further back, late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and stuff. Not even Britney Spears, Spice Girls. No, but think in terms of them being in Britain in the early in the late 90s. The world was kind of hopeful for the whole internet thing.
Yeah.
The idea of the end of history was starting to become a thing. Do you know that?
The turn of the millennium and
yeah, but the end of history is actually interesting. It's an idea coming from a futurist, Japanese futurist called Fukuyama. I don't remember the name. And the idea is that, according to him, thanks to the establishment of liberal democracies across the world, we would finally reach a station which history will stop to be written, because from there onwards would be just the progressive growth into the brightest utopia.
Yeah, you look outside and see that.
Yeah,
very right.
yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm putting that as a very important point, because you start to see plenty of changes in the world 2 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After a particular day in September.
Mm-hmm.
So the dichotomy, the way of thinking of the people, the metaphysics of the era were more positive in general, and it shows in the music.
Yeah, the whole outlook of things. Yeah.
And also you got plenty of bands being extremely successful coming out of England at that period. Just to name a few, Blur and Oasis.
Yeah.
Huge hits,
Yeah.
but gigantic, and also Radiohead. Radiohead is British, right?
Yeah. I think so. I
think it is British.
Yeah.
But let's pretend that I'm incorrect. Okay, so just Blur and Oasis.
Enough. Huge.
You can go bigger.
Yeah.
And those two bands, being part of the new British invasion, paved the way for many more music to come. Because you also got later Dido, this chick she's a good singer, but one hit wonder probably, because that song with Eminem and that's it.
Yeah.
But she's a good singer, and actually her album is not good. It's not bad.
Yeah, I don't really know her.
No, I listened to her album. It's actually good. It's similar to Coldplay. It's not pop, man. That's the thing.
Kind of like soft rock kind of thing.
It's soft rock. It's kind of like a better version of Alanis Morissette with a better singer.
Alanis Morissette is not a bad singer.
She is, man. But she's a better composer. The thing is that she was also everywhere, man, in the mid '90s.
Pushed very hard.
Yeah. Enough. So I think that if we understand the idiosyncrasies of the period in which this album got released, we kind of start to get a much better picture of what was going on in their heads. Because the music sounds positive as well. Even though it's nostalgic and kind of sad sounding, it's not that kind of doom and damnation sadness.
No, and it doesn't even get to be sad.
No,
it's more, once again, it's kind of nostalgic and it's kind
like
of
that fuzzy
melancholic.
Melancholic, with that fuzzy feeling that comes from remembering good things.
Because it's warm, it's not cold.
Yeah. I get you. I know, but once again, music is hard to describe.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel that their fall from grace is even greater, man. Because what made them popular was, okay, you got Blur, which is like the nasty version. It's like the noisy guys, right? Then you got your Oasis, the popular one.
Yeah.
and probably the good one. And then
I think Coldplay is better than Oasis.
and then Coldplay shows up, final form.
Mm-hmm.
They were the chosen one,
Yeah.
and then they did the chosen one thing.
Yeah.
That's probably the reason why it's kind of disappointing, man.
Yeah, because especially taking into account that the debut album is their best piece of work, let's look at it from the perspective of the time. So wow, if this is their first album, imagine what comes next.
Man, the expectation was sky high, man.
Yeah.
Because after the success of, I remember I was a kid. After the success of A Rush of Blood to the Head, the expectation was truly high.
Yeah.
Because people were like, okay, the debut was excellent. A Rush of Blood to the Head was a little bit more commercial, but still great.
Still good, yeah.
The third one has to be, boom. And it was just a consistent decline that ended up being what they are now.
The thing is, they are extremely successful, and they still are extremely
Super
successful.
beyond successful, man.
I even think that they're probably, because if we want to call them a rock act, which honestly I don't think they are at this point in time.
If I may,
Go.
they turned them into millennial U2.
Yeah.
Because you got U2 for the Xers, Coldplay is the same, but for millennials.
Yeah, but the edgy millennials is Muse, and the non-edgy millennials
Agreed.
is Coldplay.
It's Coldplay. Agreed. 100%.
Yeah.
Because product.
Yeah.
They turned them into product because also Muse, I don't like them.
I
But
don't think Muse is bad.
no,
I actually like
I
their-
don't
their
like them.
first album
I
as well.
just stated that. I don't like them.
Yeah.
I don't think they're bad. But they turn into product.
Yeah.
They feel like a product. Way too kind of artificial.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Coldplay probably was the blueprint for it.
And look, I think that there's a similar phenomenon that happened with both of these bands. Because I don't think that either Coldplay or Muse, and this is a little bit of an insight of how the industry may work on that regard, which may be territory for the podcast, but just a little bit of...
trying a little bit of food for thought.
We already established that we, and I think very, very, very much that those two albums, especially the first one, is very sincere. It's their music, it's their sound, it's their voice being projected, and their ideas.
Because it even sounds fragile, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
scared, like it might not work, but it's what I got.
But so the whole manufactured feel of it comes in later.
Yeah.
So I do think they fall very, very clearly into the category of sell out.
Yeah.
Because I do think that they were bought.
Yeah.
Because the discrepancies are beyond ignoring.
I can't compare them.
Yeah.
Because when I was looking for the songs, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay.
When I was looking for the album to listen to before going live, they are now doing collaborations, man. Like everybody's doing right now.
Yeah, this is the current thing.
Yeah, like no, man, you can go lower than this. This is already you're at the very bottom of the barrel. Because they do that because they are hoping to bring audiences from both of the products that they are merging.
Yeah.
It's like Flintstones meets the Jetson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's basically
Yeah,
that.
no, it's exactly that. Yeah, yeah.
It's ridiculous, it's, outrageous, and especially when I saw that, then I was like looking for the good album, like the hell with you. So take us on.
Okay. No, but look, let's try before going to taking us home. Let's try to end it with a good note. I think they created a legacy with the two first albums. For as much as they have more time and more work being done under the new auspices, I think those two albums are gonna stay. Because the rest of their music, being very honest, even though it's successful now,
Okay,
but
but
it's inconsequential.
Think about this, man. Let's say that you got a kid, and you want to introduce the kid into good music, right? Of course, being a kid, you won't be able to show a kid freaking Miles Davis.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Because he's not gonna have the intellectual capacity to appreciate the entirety of the thing.
Yeah.
So little by little, and it's not that you have to show a kid bad music. No. Lesser degrees of complexity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because complexity doesn't equal. It's not equal to good.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just more accessible. Coldplay is a good introduction, particularly these two fuckers.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Agreed.
There's the level of respect.
Imagine the kid Dad, I love these albums. Can I listen to more? No. Why? Have you heard the sad tale of Darcy? It's basically that, man. The tragedy. Because they go like, do they suck that hard? The hell?
Oh, we can always tell your kid that they die in a very tragic plane crash, like Pearl Jam after
10.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's one of those bands, man.
Yeah.
Because right now it's easy to think that, well, they got what they got, because they're still around, and their fan base is still around. But think a little bit further ahead, man. We don't have to go that far into the future, man.
One generation.
No, not even one generation, man. 10 years. Why? Because the only people who cares about them is their fans at this stage. I don't think they're bringing in new people. The thing is that they got so many people in their ranks that they don't need to.
Because they are pushed way too hard nowadays.
Yeah, but that begs the question, why? Why? I'm not gonna say why.
That's a conversation.
That's a conversation for another day.
So with that said, then, girls and boys, it was fun. Good to have you here. If you want to be part of these conversations, you can drop comments and we're gonna be responding to them. Better, even better for them to be part of these conversations, that we keep them going on our Discord.
And one thing, if you happen, because I still hold to the idea that they can still write good music. If you have listened to their new stuff and you know of a track that is as good as or close to the sound of Parachutes or A Rush of Blood to the Head, please share it with us in any way you can.
Yeah.
It could be through Discord, link in the description, the freaking comment section here, or in the next live stream, because I'm gonna be doing an analysis to one of their songs from Parachutes.
Okay.
I'm gonna go for Trouble, because I think it's the one that exposes this, and I'm gonna do a proper analysis for the track. So please, you're already fair warned.
Yes. So, and outside of that, if you like to be part of more conversations like this one, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Ring the bell so you can be notified of when we go live and release new videos and stuff. And also, if you want to support us even further, you can listen to our music on Apple Music or Spotify. Does it?
No, it does. It doesn't sound like Coldplay by any means.
No, it doesn't.
This is better. So
and also follow us on Instagram so we can be in touch in a more personal manner. Anything else that needs to be said?
No, as usual, a certain time when we meet you, we gotta remind you that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. Remember that we will see you when we see you.